Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the LSR7 Board of Education Candidate Forum, hosted by the Lee Summit PTA Council. All PTAs are represented here tonight, either in person or virtual with us online. If you're in here today and you feel like you need to take a break, get some water, coffee, soda, there's some there in the back for you to get at your leisure. I'm Lorenzo Harrison. I'm the president of the PTA Council. Thank you all for coming out tonight. We also have our secretary here today, Rebecca Hevel, if you want to stand and wave and let them know who you are. And then our treasurer is here, Ashley Lund, right? Got it, she's right over there. We are excited to have this today. Once again, this is probably our third PTA Council forum. So many people enjoy these, and we're glad that we're able to host it one more time. This was started with an idea of a previous PTA president, Melanie Cox. So we're just continuing on the legacy that she started, and hoping that this continues on with the new boards that take over the Lee Summit PTA Council. Today, we do have some students that will be asking questions for us today. We have Lily, who is a 6th grader at East Trails Middle School, and we have Abby, who's a 9th grader at Lee Summit High School. We're also going to have an announcement from our Lee Summit West Job Fair. If y'all want to come up and please give a few remarks on that and what that is at this time. Yep, right now.
Hi, my name is Sarah Sings, and I am with Lee Summit West PTSA. We add the S in the high school level because we add students into the PTA, and I have my fellow job fair committee over there as well. But for the 3rd year, we will be hosting a student job fair where, as you can see, all 3 of the high school PTSAs get together. Last year, we had 350 students coming looking for jobs. The majority of them are 15 to 16 years old looking for their first job. What we're asking for you now is, do you know of any businesses that might want to participate in this event? We have, of course, asked our previous vendors at it, but we're always looking for new. So if you have any suggestions, please come see us over in that row right there at the end of the event. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, tonight's forum, we are live streaming tonight on the Lee Summit PTA Council YouTube page, as well as on our Facebook page. If you want to tell others who are not able to make it tonight, they could join in and watch us live right now, and also they could watch the replay after today's event. Today's candidates will have a time limit. When the time is up, they can complete the current sentence, but will be asked to move on. Audience noise, please keep the forum moving smoothly. We ensure that all questions that get asked, we ask that you keep your noise to a minimum throughout our event. Once the timer has stopped, there is a beep sound. That means your time is up, and if I have to stand up, that means your time is really over time. So we're trying to do this in a decent amount of time and also let you all have that opportunity to talk to the candidates tonight as well. But we're asking that you stay to the time limit. We're going to start with introductions. You have 1 minute and 30 seconds each. We're going to go in the order they appear on the ballot. At this time, we're starting with Dr. Camille Johnson.
Can everyone hear me? Okay, minute 29. Hello, everyone. Good evening. I am Dr. Camille Johnson, and I am a current board member on the LSR7 Board of Education, and I am running again for re-election. Why am I running again for re-election? Because I think protecting our public schools is extremely important, because this is education for everyone and anyone. The doors are open to all. And I think that it is a right to be educated. And we want people to be educated so they can make well-informed decisions. I'm also running because I want to ensure that our teachers and our staff are making competitive wages and making sure that they can be in our community, live in our community, and work in our community, because we all work together to make Lee Summit a destination district. Also, I would like to make sure we are removing any barriers to education. And when I talk about barriers to education, I mean increasing access. LSR7 has some excellent programs like IB courses, courses here at STA, and we want to make sure each student has access to those. And access to those also means parents being aware of these options. And lastly, I want to make sure we remain fiscally responsible. We currently are taking care of our budget, but we know that cuts have come, and we need to be very mindful of that and conscientious. And I think LSR7 does an excellent job of taking care of the budget, and I plan to keep on doing that. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Matt Wharton, and I want to thank the PTA Council and the Missouri Innovations Campus for. Oh, did I turn it on? Hello. Good thing I have a loud voice. So I want to thank everyone for being here tonight, taking time out of your busy schedule. A little about me. I'm a husband and a father. My son Jack goes to Lee Summit High School. My daughter Bella goes to East Trails. My daughter Piper goes to Sunset Valley. And some of you might have seen me wheeling around my 8-month-old Harper. So I'm invested deeply in the success of our district today, and obviously for the next 18 years. Professionally, I've spent my recent experiences in building technology systems. So think fire alarm, security like access control and cameras, intercom systems, AV, audio, classroom technology, things like that. So I have a deep understanding of how the K through 12 procurement process looks like and about these systems and what needs to be prioritized, where we can save money, and just how those kinds of things work. But really, the reason that I'm here tonight, the reason that I'm running for school board is because I believe the best educational outcomes occur when we have a strong and committed partnership between parents and the community and educators. And thankfully, we have a deep and talented pool of educators in our district, not just on staff, but on the board as well. But I also know that the most effective leadership comes when you have a variety of experiences. And so I would plan to bring my experience as a business leader and as a business consultant over the course of the last 20 years to my role in the school board if you would elect me. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and I just wanted to say thank you so much for being here to get to know us. So I know that the weather is a little bit chilly outside, but hopefully you're finding it warm in here. So again, my name is Regina Garrett, and I am currently on the school board. I'm running for re-election. I have 2 kids within the school district. I have my oldest going to Lee Summit High School, and I have one at East Trails Middle School. My wife are running for school board again. My first time I ran for the basics and focusing on reading. I know literacy is a big issue right now, especially after COVID. We do have reading programs for our primary grades, but we don't have it for our secondary. And going around talking to middle school principals, I'm finding out just wanting to know more about what they're seeing, what they're experiencing with the reading gaps. Or proficiency gaps, I should say. I do see that we have a lot of struggling middle schoolers. And so that is something that I would like to focus in my second term. Again, my name is Regina Garrett, and I'm asking for your vote on April 7th. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Roderick Sparks, and I first would like to thank the PTA for giving us this opportunity to be able to share with you, and then I thank you for showing up, and then lastly, I appreciate those that are wearing Sparks stickers. I've served on the Board of Education before, and I am wanting to get back on the board. And I think it's important that as we are looking forward to where the board is, you need to have individuals on the Board of Education that have experience. You need to also have individuals on the Board of Education that is willing to make trips to Jeff City and to be able to fight for public education. I appreciate everyone that is here, but what I'm asking from you today is to take an evaluation of what not only has been done, but really where we're going to take the district moving forward. There's 4 of us that actually have a record. So examine that record. I want to be able to share that record, because I stand by the support that I've done for teachers. I stand by the support that I've done, that we have done. There's 3 of us, 4 of us that have done some things together, but ultimately it should be about students. Every decision that is being made, it should be focused on students, and that is exactly what I've done. And so I'm asking you today to please listen to what we've done, go check what we've done, and then be able to make a very conscious vote on April the 7th. Thank you.
Good evening. Am I on? Okay. Good evening, everybody. I want to echo what my fellow candidates have said and say thank you so much to the PTA for hosting this event. And thank you all of you who took time out of your busy schedules to be here today with us to learn a little bit more. My name is Erica Miller, and I am currently serving on the Board of Education. This is the end of my first term, and I'm seeking re-election. Why am I seeking re-election? Well, I love this work. And anyone who's followed me these last 3 years hopefully sees the love I have for LSR7, for our students, for our teachers and staff, and for our community. I'm running because while there's work that has been done, there's still more work to do. We still have work to do. And I believe that we need to focus on our student mental health. We have 1 in 4 students that globally experience suicide, even today, right? We need to be focused on bullying prevention, suicide programs, and just making sure that our students have the resources that they need to be successful from an emotional standpoint and an academic standpoint. I'm also focused on teachers. I love our teachers. I love our teachers. And that's all I'm gonna say. You'll learn more later.
All right, I'm going to pass it off to our students to start our questions for tonight. I did want to let you all know that we did invite all candidates to attend. We did not hear from Kirsty Martin, and we have found out that Christopher Thornton has suspended his campaign as he sent a statement to us as I read the email. It says, "Thank you for the invite. Have decided to suspend my campaign to allow for voters to not have to choose between equity-minded individuals." So that's what he had sent for tonight. So start with our next questions.
Hi. What do you think the role of the PTA or the PTSA is in our schools?
So I think the role of the PTA and the PTSA in the schools is to understand what's going on in the schools and to ensure that other parents and other community members are aware of what's going on in the schools. So for instance, I learned about the IB courses and the advanced courses at Lee Summit High School's PTA meeting because that's where my son attends as a freshman. And I understand that some of these things are on the internet, but everyone doesn't go to the internet, and sometimes you gotta dig around and have a couple clicks before you can find something. So I think the PTA and PTSA also create a sense of community for parents. So if you cannot directly interact with some of the staff at the school, because it's during the school day when you're at work, you can have these interactions with parents who sometimes are also teachers and staff and get to know the school in the district that you're in by going to these meetings that are after hours, which I think can be very helpful for a parent. And I think it's important to continue to advocate for the kids in the school, and this is what parents can do, being closely related to them.
The role of PTA, a lot of times I think that parents need a pathway to engage, a pathway to connect. And I think the PTA is the easiest and most obvious gateway to create that space for them to just jump in and get involved. It's something that I think if you asked 100 parents, most of them have kind of heard of the PTA. And if you were to ask them, well, how else do I get involved? I don't know how many answers you're necessarily going to get. So within the context of that gateway, there's an opportunity to forge relationships and build community, both with other parents, other students. I know that we've made some friends with parents as our kids are friends and things like this, and just it's a way to build community in our neighborhoods, right? Because no one works where your neighbors work anymore. So it's really difficult unless you decide to go and bring cookies next door, right? To be able to engage with folks. And so the PTA creates that space, gives you an opportunity to meet the teachers, and then find out where you can get involved next.
Thank you. I believe that the role of the PTA and the PTSA, it's a way to get plugged in as a parent who was on the PTA when my kids were in elementary, I found it as a way to kind of get plugged into the school, but also collaborate with others of different skill sets so that we could do what was best for the kids, whether that was fundraising or just giving ideas as to what would be improvements for our children's school. And that's what I would say would be the best for the PTSA.
Okay, so for the PTA, the involvement is really when you're taking parents and you're there to support the schools. And so that is to fundraise, and that's to advocate for public education, but ultimately it's a supporting role. When you look at PTSA, then that's really where you're pushing your students to get involved so that they are actually supporting the schools. And so I think it's all of us working together, and that's what helps us to be strong schools.
Right. So the PTA and the PTSA, they are support systems. As a PTA member, when my kids were little and in elementary, focused on raising money for the schools, raising money to make sure that certain things within the schools or outside of the schools could be kept up and things like that. Supporting our teachers and the staff at the school, that's an important role of the PTA. The PTSA also does all of those things, right? But as others have said, they have that student element, which is really nice to see the students involved and having leadership skills and things like that. So the PTAs are incredible. They support our teachers, they support our students, and they support our schools.
What do you see as the roles and responsibilities as a board member?
The roles and responsibilities of a board member. I think first and foremost is providing the best and most effective educational platform for each and every student. That's first and foremost. Second, I would say supporting and driving strong salaries and benefits for teachers. Because I mean, at the end of the day, the classroom and the people that inhabit the classroom are the top priority. The next layer is to the taxpayer. Fiscal responsibility and transparency in terms of how the taxpayers' money is being spent, prioritizing the right things, which again kind of leads back into priority number one. And then the next layer I think is to listen, right? So like I mentioned earlier, I don't come from an educational background. So there's gonna be, I'm expecting some questions tonight that I'm gonna kind of go, oh man, I'm not real sure. Right, and I'm not going to stand up here and pretend that I understand what it's like to come from an educational background, because I don't. But I'm a good listener, and I do bring experience working with businesses and things like that. So those are the priorities for me.
Thank you. So what the responsibilities of a school board member? One is that we're going to oversee and evaluate our superintendent. So that is really crucial, that we are all on the same page working as a board and with the superintendent. Our second one is, of course, fiscal responsibility. We want to make sure that we're making the best choices that impact our schools, impact our students, impact our teachers, and impact our taxpayers as well. Another one we have, I would say, is being able to collaborate with each other, being able to communicate well and respect for one another, and being able to come to decisions as a board that is best for the students and for the school district. It's coming down. There's a bunch more, but hopefully we'll get to that later. Thank you.
The primary role of the Board of Education is to hire and evaluate the superintendent. Then there's also a governing board. It's 7 individuals that are elected by the community that is there to govern the district. That means that we have to set policy. That means we also have to set priorities for the district. And so that is us being able to look at the data, the metrics, and also evaluate what is in the best interest of all of our students and all of our staff. There is obviously a financial component to this. With LSR7 being the largest employer in Lee Summit, we have a very large budget. And so yes, it is very, it's the duty on us as a board to be able to monitor where those dollars are being spent, and also to advocate in Jeff City to be able to have more dollars so that we can do more to support all of our families. Thank you.
Okay, so the primary role of a school board member is to hire and supervise the superintendent. That's the number one role and responsibility as a board member. We have policy, we have fiscal responsibility, and then overseeing things that are important to our teachers and our staff, and is also our students. When I think about my role, one of the things that I pride myself on is not surface level service. You have to, there's more than meetings, there's more than committees. I love being able to go into the classroom, see what our students are doing, engage with them, as well as talk to our teachers. I can't tell you how many phone calls I've had with teachers and students, but just supporting is the biggest piece of the puzzle.
In one word, what is... Whoa. Number 9. All right. Nope. Sorry.
You want me to wait for the timer? Okay. Okay, I'm not mad, everyone. I'm Camille, but it's okay. So the primary role of the board member in the Board of Education is to oversee and evaluate the superintendent. I believe that means having high support and high challenge. So the high support comes from when the superintendent and his leadership is guiding the district towards meeting our mission. And our mission is preparing each student for success in life. So that's where we get the high support from. And when he's letting us know and his staff is letting us know what has been good and what has been successful in the district, I think we look at that critically and we continue to support it if it is also fiscally responsible and good for the students. I think that also sometimes the high challenge comes from is because we are community members and we are duly elected into this position, and I think we need to make sure we represent the voices of the community when we're in that boardroom, open sessions, and in closed sessions.
In one word, what is the biggest challenge in public education right now?
I have 2 things, but I'll say the main thing as my platform is going to be literacy. I think with literacy, we're going to be able to open so many doors for our students that are below proficient. So I would have to say reading.
Academics.
I'll say budget. Why? Because we know that coming from the top, things are being cut left and right. Our programs, the teacher salaries, things are being cut, and we have to protect as much as possible. You know, when it comes to money and when it comes to budget.
Funding. We need money. It's bleeding. We need more money for the district for the same reasons that my fellow board member Erica mentioned. We need it for the curriculum. We need it for the staff and teachers. We need it for the people who drive our kids to school on the buses every day. And we need it for our paraprofessionals. We need it for our SPED. So again, it's the funding that we need to keep the district rolling.
I'll say parental involvement. Again, I mentioned at the top of the discussion, right, that the best educational outcomes come from that strong partnership of educators and parents, because parents provide that day in, day out, that accountability to do the homework, to do their best work. And so my priority would be creating more and more ways for parents to get involved in the education process, partner with the teachers, partner with the counselors, with the administrators, and just be fully engaged in the process, because that way each student, although obviously I know, the teachers advocate for the students, but they've got 20, 30, 100, 200 of these kids, and the parents are the ones that are in a good position to help encourage them and hold those kids accountable.
As a board member, how will you work to support all students, even if they are different from you?
That is a wonderful question, and it's a great question. And that's because as a board member, you don't get to pick and choose who you want to support. You have to support all students. As a public educational system, you don't get to pick and choose who are the winners and the losers. We have to educate all kids, no matter if they have modifications to their learning abilities, if there is disabilities that we have to adjust to, if there is barriers that are in place, we have to knock those barriers down so that every kid can come into the classroom and they can be their whole self, and they can actually learn. And so once we identify those barriers, we as a district have to make sure that we are eliminating those barriers so that every kid can experience a free and a fair education.
As a board member, the way that I support all students, that's one of my platform items, right? To ensure that each and every child has resources that they need to be successful in the classroom and once they leave. And so some of the ways that I've supported students during my tenure so far has been to actually going into the classrooms, talking to the students, meeting with students outside of school when they reach out to me, being able to support them. I've supported students getting internships. I've supported students on their senior projects. I had 2 students that I helped last year with capstone projects. They reached out to me about that. I'm helping a student currently with a community project that they want to see done in our community, to support our community. So the way that I support our students is to listen to them and be available.
So I think one of the best ways to support all students is to make sure you're being a part of the policy and procedure conversations that are happening, and to make sure that we are putting things in place that include all students and aren't so exclusive that people don't have access to the education that they deserve, because education is a right, public education is a right. The other way is making sure that there are procedures that are done to make sure our schools are safe and to make sure our schools are secure. So that is extremely important. And then there's the advocacy work that some of my fellow board members and previous board members have talked about. So yes, when there's legislation that comes down that can hurt any student, we need to make sure that we are not promoting that. We need to be advocates for everyone to be included and not excluding anyone, regardless of what they look like, who they love, and what religion they practice.
Public education is a foundational platform for our communities. And in order to make sure that all students have the right opportunity to be able to engage in the educational process, to maximize the potential that they have, it's important that policies look at the broad spectrum, while also recognizing that, look, distribution curves are a thing for a reason, right? There's tails. And so there have to be some allowances and programs to help those folks at either end of the tail, right? So it can't just be one size fits all, even though from a policy perspective, that's the challenge that you face, is how to make a broad policy that is applicable fairly across everyone, while also recognizing that, sometimes there are differences and not everyone is the same. At the end of the day, the kids matter. And for me personally, I where you come from, what your background is, I don't care, right? I care about you having the right opportunity to get the best education possible.
Well, the way that I've advocated for all students is the last 2 years I have been to Jeff City and I have advocated for the full funding, the full formula funding for our schools here in Lee Summit. So I particularly look forward to that again this year. Another way that I have advocated for students is with the reading. So by going to different schools in LSR7, I've been able to talk to principals, administration, and find out what their needs are. What are they lacking in, or what are they doing great in? I want to be able to advocate for whatever areas, especially reading. I would love to advocate to make sure every child has an opportunity to open doors, to make them successful readers. I just believe that it doesn't matter what your background is, what your color is. I'm not looking for that. I'm looking to make sure each child is educated and can read.
How many collective hours have you spent in a public school in the last year, either volunteering, working, or visiting?
Well, have you looked at my Facebook page? So I don't know how many hours I'm in the classroom, probably several hours a week between supporting students and supporting teachers. I pride myself on being a servant. I think that we were all put on this earth to serve, to love, and to lift others up. And so I feel like my time on the board has really been spent doing that. I've been in the classroom, I've been with the teachers, and so I don't know, thousands of hours have been spent over the last 3 years in the classroom, I would think. But who's counting?
PTA is counting. That's for sure. So the reality is, I do not get to spend a lot of time in the classroom. And this is because of the work that I do that I love so much, because I am a pharmacist, I work in the healthcare system, and I'm serving the public there too. So by no means does it mean that I don't understand the importance of the work, and it doesn't mean that I won't continue to advocate for it. And what I do make sure is when I come to the meetings and when I do go to events, I am well informed about what's going on. I'm using critical thinking to make good decisions. And we are a board of 7, and so I listen to my other board members and hear what they have to say about being in the classrooms and being in different places the way Erica is. But what I'm saying is, overall, I would love to be there more. Everyone's life is not set up the same, but just know, no matter where I'm at, I'm advocating for education for all.
So as I mentioned earlier, I have my 3 kids, the 3 oldest kids anyway, that are in each level of the school. So I've spent a lot of time over the last couple of years. This most recent year has been kind of intense because my daughter was born and spent a couple of months in the NICU and, you know, some other crazy things with family and health things. So this past year, not as much as I would like. But regardless of the outcome of this election, right, this process has already taught me a lot about what I can do to be involved more. And if it's as a board member, that'll be fantastic and I'll be excited. But even if not, then I think that I've met a lot of really just neat folks here, and I'll be excited to spend even more time in the upcoming year.
That is a really hard question to answer as far as how many hours. As you know, we all have different type of schedules. I am the one who likes to take advantage of any opportunity I can. So I am fully invested and fully immersed within LSR7. So whether it's visiting the schools and administration and getting to know what changes have been made, what's positively impacting the students, to volunteering to help students build birdhouses, as well as volunteering. Any opportunity I have for that, I'll take advantage of. So as I said, I'm fully immersed and I'm fully invested in LSR7. Thank you.
In the past year, I've been able to spend as much time as I've been invited to be into our schools. And so outside of my supporting my daughter, I have volunteered. Today, I was able to spend close to 4 hours at Lee Summit Elementary, and to be able to talk to students on a rotation basis of 15 minutes. And the kids were coming in and out, and they were asking questions about my past service and what I currently do as a profession. But ultimately, me being able to pour into them and let them know that they matter, that they belong, and also let them know that they can be a leader.
The board is tasked with hiring a new superintendent. In the event, what happens during your term, what do you feel qualifies you as a board member to find top talent and maintain stability?
So one of the things that qualifies me is being an experienced board member. I have spent the last 3 years working with our current superintendent, and there are evaluations, there's process improvement, there's actions that we take to make sure that he's doing the best thing possible for his staff and his students. Also, I do have management experience. So I've been a pharmacy manager, director, and a VP for 17 years. I've managed many people, and managing those people means some training, it means learning, it means looking at the budget, and it means working with other people to make sure that we make the best decisions. So I've been around, and I know what our school needs, and I've seen what our school needs, and I know what to look for in a candidate. We need to look for someone who's connected to the community, look for someone who is connected to the schools, who is well-educated, and wants to support all of our students.
Throughout the course of my career, I've hired dozens of people. And so I've interviewed a lot of different folks. And, you know, when I first started, you kind of run through the generic interview questions. And then you realize that if anyone is even remotely smart, they can come up with those answers. And so personally, I enjoy spending a little bit of a longer time, because really, and especially knowing the folks that have a background in the educational world, I'll trust their perspectives to validate that experience and the plan. What I want to see is character. I want to see integrity. I want to get a sense to understand who this person is in front of us. Are they going to be the person that's going to lead our district the right way, make the right decisions when things get hard, make the right decisions when things aren't easy, right? Any executive leader, they get all the problems that are the hardest ones to solve. They get all the ones that no one else below them can make that call, and they get the toughest ones. And so that would be my focus, is bringing all that experience that I have just out in the private sector to this process.
I have a sales mostly background. So a couple of different companies I've worked for, Nebraska Furniture Mart, that's a big one, been in furniture sales. And so I think knowing how to listen and being able to communicate effectively is a really good qualifier for being able to communicate with a superintendent and finding what their background is, listening to that, what their strengths or weaknesses are. And I've also done interviewing. So working for Russell Stover Candies, I was able to interview in Spanish and hire new hires to work in different Russell Stover candy stores around the United States. And so that would be the best thing I could offer. Thank you.
So yes, the board is tasked with hiring the superintendent. After having a meeting with Dr. Buck, hopefully we're not hiring a new superintendent. Hopefully that he stays our superintendent and he continues to do the work that he is doing. But in the event that we do have to hire a superintendent, it's important that we vet the superintendents that are applying. It's important that we have an experienced superintendent. It's also important that the board collectively works together and make sure that whoever is hired is someone that is going to carry the vision of the district. One of the things that I will say, I've said it privately many times and I will say it publicly. Former board member, Vice President Heather Eslick, she's in the room. And one of the things that I always valued about her personally is that she did do the work. And so you have to have board members that are willing to do the work and show up every single day and ask the hard questions when it comes to hiring or even reprimanding a superintendent.
So I believe that what I bring to the table as far as being able to hire a new superintendent, should we have to do that, would be all of the training that we are afforded as board members. I've traveled all over to conferences and been able to speak with superintendents from all over the country and board members from all over the country, and that's always one of the main training sessions that you can go to is, what do you do if you need to hire a new superintendent? So we have the resources available to us through MSBA and other platforms that allow us direct connection and training to help support that role if we should have to do that.
If a parent were to contact you as a board member to express concerns about an issue that their student encountered in one of the district's buildings, how would you respond?
I think one of the key elements of any good leader is the ability to sit and listen and take the time and truly listen, right? And we all know when someone has kind of got the glazed over look and is just kind of nodding and not really paying attention. And look, one of the challenges we know, parents, they come in all varieties, right? Some reasonable, maybe some less so. But just because you may not necessarily agree or understand why someone is bringing that concern, you're not solving any problems. You're not making any progress by being dismissive of that parent. So it's important to sit and listen. But then it's also important to be honest in your response too, right? Their concern may not be something that is even that valid or can be solved for, right? And there's got to be some honesty. And my hope would be that you can provide a diplomatic response such that they feel heard, that their concern matters, their kid matters, even if they're not going to get the answer they want to hear.
I believe listening is huge. So when a parent, and this actually happened recently, if a parent does come to express a concern about an issue with their child in their school, I of course want to listen, and secondly, offer empathy and kind of restate that what the situation is to make sure that they understand that I know or I understood what their concern was. And secondly, ask questions. I think that's huge to find out more information. Sometimes it can be overwhelming, emotionally overwhelming for a parent because at that moment they have a huge problem. And so acknowledging that that is a real issue, a huge problem for them, and then asking follow-up questions, maybe to see what steps that parent has taken so far, and then how to follow up after that. So once again, listening is huge when we're encountering these parents.
Yes, listening is good. But giving parents the help that they're seeking is better. When parents are coming to board members, they're looking for resources. And they're coming to the top, the Board of Education, to guide them in the direction that they need to go to get what they're needing for their children. And so, yes, listening is good, but I think what's better is when we can direct them in the right direction so that they can actually get or address the issues that they're bringing forth.
Right, so this has happened plenty of times. I've gotten calls from parents who are needing support or help. And so in the therapy world, we call this lover, being a lover, which is listen, understand, empathize, listen, understand, validate, empathize, repeat. And so making sure that person feels seen and heard. The other piece of the puzzle for me is to direct them to policy. Is whatever the issue that they're having, does it have a policy connected to it that we can lean on so that they have the power and are empowered themselves to be able to seek what they're needing? And then also trying to help them solve that problem, either by me being able to validate that and give them direction, or sending them to the right person that can support them and help guide them to the answer that they need.
I know you can't say ditto, but you do have to listen to understand, and you want to listen to think about how you can help the person. You do want to show empathy, regardless of what the issue is they're bringing to you. And once you've done that and you've let the person know they've been heard, you want to seek the solutions. So I always ask, can you tell me what you've done so far? Because I believe that there is a chain of command, and if we follow that we can get answers maybe sooner than we think. And then if we have followed that and the answers aren't done and it makes it to the board, then at that point, I think it's time to escalate it, and I would let the board president know, and I let the superintendent know. And after that, I say, I would like to know what the resolution was. I would like to know what the follow-up is, because this parent did contact me directly. And if they've been to the teacher and the principal and the assistant principals, it comes to me, it goes to the president.
Name 2 areas you feel LSR7 is excelling and 2 areas where we can improve on.
Thank you. I believe communication is an area where it can be improved upon, and I'm talking about with the school district out to the families. It's improved a little bit. I think being able to communicate to parents about different programs that LSR7 offers. There are so many avenues or so many different references, sites that we have, but oftentimes it seems like it's too much. It's over communication. So that's probably one area. For another one for excelling, I would say having, sorry, I am drawing a blank at this point. Thank you.
All right, 2 areas that I believe the LSR7 is excelling. Number 1, our graduation rate. We are still graduating a very high percentage of students through this system. The other piece is our staff. We have the most experienced staff, and people do not leave. The majority of the individuals that are leaving our district is because they're retiring. It's not because there's another district they can go to. When it comes to areas of improvement, we should always be looking for areas of improvement. And so one of the areas that I think that we can improve in is making sure that we're telling our story. And that is the story of all of the great things and the opportunities that are available for all students. The other area that I believe that we can improve in is our academics. We still have students that are underperforming, and we have to be able to identify what are those areas and why are they underperforming so that they can actually have that gap closed when it comes to our different subgroups.
Right, so 2 areas I feel like LSR7 is excelling. Well, there's so many, right? How do you choose? I would say my top 2 that come to mind are the real world learning opportunities that we have for our students. Our students are walking out the door with associate's degrees. They're walking out with their pilot's license. They're walking out with so much in terms of experience they're way ahead of most of their peers when they go into the job market or into college or wherever they go off to after they leave LSR7. So real world learning opportunities are incredible. And also the community connections. I don't know if you know this, but we have connections with our police department and our fire, our Chamber of Commerce, our city council, and we collectively work together to support LSR7. I would say, since I only have 2 seconds, increasing teacher pay is something we need to work on.
So what I think we do really good on the first one has been mentioned, but the graduation rates where students get market value assets. And what are market value assets? These are additional training and additional education that prepare students to go into the workforce, to the military, or college or university. We're preparing everyone for all of those things because we know that the same path is not designated for every person. Another thing that I think we're excelling in right now, we have stability with our superintendent. He has been here, and that stability is increasing trust with the community. We are finding more ways to communicate with the community and interact with the community, whether that's through PRATS, through our CAC. Those things are extremely important. And also, believe it or not, stability helps with your credit rating as a district. So when we go to get bonds or we go to get anything like that, our credit rating is AA because of stability, and that's increased over time.
Lee Summit is a destination. When people move here from out of town and they say, hey, where do I want to live? They come to live here because of how good these schools are. And so that's something that we should be tremendously proud of and continue to look to maintain and figure out how we can improve upon it. I was amazed as my son got into high school, just the variety of programs and tracks and IB and these various things. And frankly, it was a little overwhelming because there was so many different opportunities to get involved. From an opportunity perspective, we saw a graph in terms of where, starting teacher pay ranks amongst districts in the metro area, and I think we were down to like 13th. So I think that's a big concern. The other thing that I would say is driving focus on, again, with all these programs, I still think that STEM and vocational education there's still some work to be done in terms of educating and making sure that students don't feel like that's a lesser path and choice.
Let's give it up for our students asking those questions. So they said if I'm back, that means the questions get harder now, right? I don't know. We'll see. We have a few questions for the community that I'll be asking. On Friday, hundreds of students staged a walkout to protest ICE. There were several reports of students throwing items at cars, impacting traffic, students being bullied for not participating, students using art class time to make signs, and etc. How do you feel LSR7 handled these events, and what would you do differently? Oh.
All right. So I'm going to be completely honest. I am not aware. I am aware of the protest that took place. I am not aware of all of the other things that are being alleged. However, what I would say is this. We do not tolerate bullying in LSR7. We do not tolerate vandalizing any cars or even doing anything that is disruptive. And so if it is a violation of board policy, then we should follow policy and we should handle those students accordingly. I also, with that being said, I believe that students have a right to protest. I believe that they have the right to be able to voice that opinion. And so as long as parents were aware of the students doing what they did, then I believe that we should be able to support that as a democracy. But again, in no way would I support any type of participation that would be disruptive.
Okay, I agree with what Roderick just stated. I don't agree with violence. I don't agree with vandalism, and certainly not bullying. I think that on the other side of the coin, though, is I do think that the students that put the protests together did it thoughtfully. The ones that I spoke with, they were doing it very thoughtfully. I think it's a right in this country to stand up for things that you believe. And so I think that our students were exercising their right. I will also tell you that Dr. Buck has a direct line of communication to all board members, so he was keeping us abreast to all of the different things over the last couple of weeks leading up to the protest and things like that. And his number one concern was safety of our kids, period. And that's every message that we got, everything that we received about communication around the events that happened were about keeping our kids safe.
So to piggyback on keeping our kids safe, one thing we also know that Dr. Buck did, he stayed in communication with law enforcement to make sure that the students were safe, to make sure that there weren't people who aren't a part of LSR7 coming onto the school's campuses, and trying to ensure that there wasn't violence and that there wasn't bullying or anything. But those things can be challenging. Again, in no way, shape, or form am I supporting any of that. And I don't think any one of our leaders or anyone in our district supports that. Also, it is not necessarily supported for students to leave out of the classrooms. But it's not like Lean on Me, you cannot lock the doors. I don't know if y'all are familiar with that movie, but students have the right to protest and their voices should be heard. And if they are respectful about it, I think it should be allowed. My son participated and he went right back to class. And I think that's okay.
I think the important thing is the equal application of policy. If the policy says, hey, we're not going to disrupt class, then we do not disrupt class. Now, with that being said, obviously parents have the full authority to say, hey, I'm going to call and have my child excused for this period of time, and that is what it is. I think that the district has to apply that policy equally. Obviously, we all have the right to get out in the street and make your voices heard, and that's a fundamental part of what makes America awesome, is that piece. But there's still the education process and not being disrupted to that is really important. All of the things as it relates to anything, whether it was illegal or bullying, obviously that's completely unacceptable. But the big thing is the district shouldn't get involved in picking and choosing which things are going to be tacitly approved or not. That's an important part of, again, kind of going back to that earlier question of how do we provide the proper educational foundation for all students, regardless of political persuasion or anything else.
Okay, so this is a very sensitive subject to me. I actually kept my kid home from school that day when Lee Summit High School had theirs. I had a feeling some things were going to get out of hand. And we did receive the updates from Dr. Buck. So I appreciated having that information. However, I felt like kids did take, matters into their own hands, got too close to the street, crossing 291 highway, and that is very dangerous. Were there vehicles that got their vehicles damaged by objects being thrown? Yes. And we only know that police are investigating who were the responsible parties for that. Now, maybe it was mostly peaceful, but that part of it was not. And honestly, with the bullying thing, I don't agree with that either. But are we allowing that by allowing protesting on school time? It's a question.
Demographic data showing the location of school-age populations Lee Summit is shifting, with some areas showing growth and some tremendous decline. This could make operating some buildings in district unsustainable. How will you navigate conversations around school consolidations to improve fiscal responsibility and provide adequate resources to all students in the district?
Right, so this is a great question. Why? Because we've already dealt with this. We had demographers come out, they did a full study. We've had parent groups, we've had our CAC, which is our group of community members that comes together to talk through different issues and things that we're facing in the district. And so I think that the way to navigate these conversations, we already have a system set up for that. We have the demographer that provided the study for us that went through looking at if schools fall below certain levels, then we have to look at them. If schools also, if attendance rates rise above certain levels, we need to be looking at that. So they developed a system of red, yellow, green, so that we have a pin in, all of the details as our demographics in our community are changing. So I think we have a system in place. We just have to follow that policy.
So yes, we do have those systems in place, and I'm grateful for it because we bring professionals in to let us know what's going on in the community, but we also absolutely provide an opportunity for parents to get involved. Parents spoke up, said they wanted to hear more. They weren't appreciative of some of the communication that they did receive or received in short notice. And so we opened up and we had a PRAT for that specific opportunity so that we could hear, because while we see the numbers and while we see things declining, we understand that there's feelings involved. Emotional intelligence is extremely important also when making decisions about things. So yes, let's follow the process, but make sure to keep in mind places where we can improve. And we learned from this recent event where we can improve, and it's the communication with the community and the parents, and having a system in place. We should all get to see that transparency in the next steps.
The largest threat to a good decision making is single factor analysis, right? And so things, questions like this are not simple. There are a lot of factors at play, a lot of priorities, and that's part of what makes, whether it's a school board, whether it's being the superintendent, that's a big piece of what makes the job very difficult. Because again, if the questions that come were simple, they would have been answered a long time ago before they got to our desk. And so it is incumbent upon each and every one of us to engage with all the different stakeholders in this conversation and understand what are the impacts. And some of that is simply projection, right? None of us can tell the future. So all we can do is ask questions, be diligent, communicate, engage in the process, weigh the various factors that play in the decision, and then as a group ultimately come to what we believe to be the best choice, and then move on from there.
Okay, well, we do have a process in place with different color codes as far as where we feel the particular school might fall, if like how much of a priority we need to consider with consolidation. But I also believe that, and of course, one more thing, we did have a community group discuss and take part in a PRAT that was able to make determinations on what they felt was necessary for a particular school in our school district. And the community attached to that school did not have a say. They did not have a voice. And so if there are demographics that are hurting in a particular community, in a school, I think we still need to listen to them.
Okay, if you all see me smiling, that's because my wife and my daughter walked in, and so I'm happy to see them. She was on mommy duty. All right, so listen, I'm just gonna answer this right and just kind of just hit it. This is about Lee Summit Elementary. And the truth of the matter is the district acknowledged that they had a mishap. They failed in their communication around this topic. And the thing about it is once you realize you did something wrong, what's the learning lesson in this is what do you do the next time? And I think the lesson that was learned is you have to engage with constituents. You have to be very transparent about what is going on within the district and why is this even a topic. And so what I would do as a board member is I would make sure that transparency is happening. I would make sure that we are not hiding anything and that we're being very upfront with why are we having this discussion. And then I would most definitely engage the parents and the students that would be impacted.
What are the literacy challenges we face in our district, and how would you address them? Camille's first answer.
So I think there are a few literacy challenges that we have. There are some students who need additional assistance, and there needs to be programming available for those students. And that programming also includes people in those positions to manage and have those programs for the students. I think another thing when it comes to literacy is the diversity in our community and the number of languages students now speak who are in our schools. And we have to find a way to address that. Because if you are not able to read English, or if you don't understand it, can't comprehend it, we have to address that first. And I know when people come into the schools, we do look at that. We look at their proficiency in English to see what we can do in terms of literacy. I think the district has, scientifically backed, data backed things that say that the programs we have currently are good. And there are a lot of programs people want to see expand, but they're very specialized and for smaller groups, and you need people in programming for that.
This would be a good example of a topic that I would be looking to learn a lot about. Because as I read that question, I said, that's a good question. I'm honestly not really sure. But in terms of how to address things, right? I think there's looking at evidence-based outcomes, understanding what actually works, right? And then having a variety of those kinds of tactics in play. And then again, as I've kind of my theme, I think, is how do you participate and get the parents involved, right? Because again, when the teacher's sitting in the classroom with 20 other students, they only have so much time to engage with that one particular student. And I know we've got some intervention things that can happen that can help increase the amount of one-on-one time, but ultimately it really is in partnership with the parent, helping, partnering with the parent and creating that plan so that the additional work that's needed outside of the classroom can happen so that the overall outcomes for that student improve.
Well, the last 3 years, I have championed parents of struggling readers. So I have attended their meetings and have been informed of any information that they could provide me. My first experience with them was having my son with me at one of the meetings, and then I was given reference at his school to have a reading interventionist. So I was able to go ahead and get assistance with that. But also finding out that we have, and this is per dyslexia.yale.edu, that we have 1 in 5 students nationwide that have dyslexia. And that is not being addressed. We have not enough resources to address the students with dyslexia. So again, if we could have those students helped with what they need, the sources that they need, many doors could be opened for them.
Okay, I'm going to have to first start by simply saying that we're not doing anything. We are doing something, and while I've been away from the district for 2 years, one of the things that we did was we now have a reading specialist that is also a specialist with dyslexia. And so they are able to deal with our students that are struggling with dyslexia. But also what I would tell you is this, so when we talk about partnerships and we talk about transparency, when we talk about actually talking through problems, and instead of just discussing problems, but actually coming up with solutions, we brought the group of struggling readers, myself and Vice President Foley, we brought that struggling group along with Dr. Buck, and we said, what do we need to do so we're on the same page? If there's needs, what do we need to do? And so I was happy to see, following that meeting, there was a struggling readers event. The district was represented, and we are still working on reading.
So literacy challenges are not new to students, not new to our district. As long as we have kiddos, there's gonna be literacy challenges because every student comes with something different, right? I think that one of the things that we've done very well to address some of our literacy challenges is starting with parents as teachers. We have a great partnership with parents as teachers in our district, and that starts with 0 to school age, right? So they're going into the homes and supporting families to help the littlest learners. We also just we're 2 years in, I think, to our universal pre-K program that's available. So we're getting those kiddos at 4 years old. They can start in the classroom learning. We also have Great Beginnings to help support our littlest learners. So there's lots of ways that we're doing that. Within the school, we also have multi-tier systems of support, which includes reading specialists. It includes time in the classroom and time out of the classroom to support those learning needs.
You have 4 more questions left, if you're wondering, so you're almost there. How will you help students to feel safe in a high school environment where physical fights occur often and can include things like vape smoke being blown into faces of other students? Matt.
This is a really good question, a really important question, right? If there's a negative impact to the educational process, it would be being uncomfortable to be at school. You know, I've had a couple of times where, you know, my daughters were having some conflict and they, you know, oh, my stomach hurts, I don't want to go to school today, right? So you see the impact of this. So I think first and foremost, it's important to have effective policies that are applied and enforced consistently across that. I think our SRO officers play a key role in this, and I've met a couple of them. The gentleman at East Trails is just a kind man, and you can tell. And I think having the right personality of the SRO is such a big deal, and you can tell that it's kind of fun watching the kids run up to him, and you can see how effective he is at his job and making sure that there's a presence and an understanding that for those students that haven't learned to be mature yet, right, and need to be held accountable, there's an understanding that they will be held accountable to behaving the way they need to and becoming a productive member of society.
As a board member, I would have to listen to the situation that's arising with a student. It was mentioned SROs are a right there on the spot way of making a student feel comfortable. But also as a board member, I'm going to have to see about the chain of command as far as, is this being alerted to a teacher, maybe that was around at that time, or administrator? How was it addressed? So there's steps that you would have to take before it comes probably to the board. And then addressing it with policy. Just being able to make sure that the child feels safe, but also that the person that is taking the actions against the student also receives discipline. That's
Yes, when it comes to becoming physical with one another, or even things like blowing vape, or let's just talk about vaping just by itself, right? You let alone just vaping in someone else's face. Ultimately, we do have to make sure that policy is being enforced, and that students do understand that there are consequences to your actions that are not appropriate. But with that being said and done, we also have to make sure that we're finding out the root cause that is causing conflict. And then are there things and measures in place to make sure that there's restorative practices? Because if we truly believe that education in the classroom is where students learn the best, then we should do everything possible to make sure we keep our students in school. And so we have to sometimes address the whole child, even when it comes to being able to deal with their emotions, and how do they address their emotions when they're dissatisfied with something that may have happened throughout the day.
So I would say that, and this is one of my platform items, right? Talking about bullying, safety, prevention, and so making sure that that our students feel safe in school is extremely important. A lot of that has to do with educating them on how to navigate hard situations. Some adults don't know how to navigate hard situations and hard conversations, right? And so I think that it's about educating and supporting our students, also giving them navigation pathways to support systems. And if they are struggling in some way, letting them have that pathway to a supportive adult that they trust. I also think that a sense of belonging is really important when it comes to these things. We also have partnerships to address vaping and things like that. We have partnerships with Lee Summit Cares, whose focus is on prevention, right? So I think having them alongside us, as well as our SMART clubs. The SMART clubs are focused on drugs and alcohol and mental health.
So I would say first and foremost with making sure that our schools are adhering to the policies and the procedures to help with this. I think the other thing is getting to the root cause of why some of these behaviors are occurring. And I think when we're looking at getting to the root cause, again, we're giving students tools in order to help. So this is where social emotional learning comes in. With these tools, you learn how to deal with some of your anxieties, you learn conflict resolution, you also learn about your social empathy and understanding where other people are coming from, and you do learn self-regulation. And I think this can help. Now, I also think about technology. And there's technology nowadays that can detect when there is vaping and when there's smoking things in the hallways. So if we had the finances, I would want to invest in something like that because we're seeing it more. But I think making sure the students have some supports and people to talk to about what's going on is important.
Do you believe the district's current structure for community engagement provides a truly equitable approach to decision-making? In particular, how effective are groups such as the Citizens Advisory Committee and the Comprehensive Facility Master Plan Committee in ensuring that all voices, especially those most impacted by their decisions, are meaningful and included?
It's a lot there. Okay, well, currently we do have, what we recently had was a dinner with the board, and where all stakeholders of LSR7 are able to come together to voice opinions or concerns. And we had a successful dinner with making sure that we had parents on board and teachers on board with changing policy, not changing, but enforcing it with cell phones. Before it became state law, that was something that we were able to engage with the community. As well as we are presented information from the different committees that are listed up there, there's a lot of them, that have been able to offer solutions for us as well to take into consideration to improve our school district.
Okay, when I came on, became a board member, one of the things that I did notice was our different prats and subgroups that were having a lot of the same individuals on these committees. And I thought it was very important as a board that we open the process up for as many voices as possible to be in the room to be able to discuss whatever topic was at hand. When the dinner with the board was established, it was not necessarily established just so that we can deal with one-off items. That is what we saw these last couple years. We saw the dinner with the boards to be utilized for cell phones, and then we saw the dinner with the boards now being utilized for Prop C. But we have to do a better job as a district to really create avenues for parents to come with concerns. Because as a district and a district our size, we have to acknowledge that everything isn't going right. We have to acknowledge that there's still opportunities for us to do something better. And so being able to create dinner with the board in the evening to allow people to engage with us, we have to do better and we have to do more.
Okay, I think that there are several avenues that our community can engage with us, and we continue to try to increase those and support opportunities for our constituents to come and talk to us. I think that that starts with building trust, right? We have to build trust in order for people to come to us and be vulnerable about what's happening or want to express something and make sure that something's going to be done about it. So I do think groups like CAC are incredible. They take so much time and effort to go through a lot of the challenges and issues, and they were established to do just that, right? Do I think we can open it up and make sure that more voices are heard? Absolutely. I think that our dinners with the board have been successful, and I'm going to continue to advocate for us to have dinners with the board, town halls, things that bring our constituents to us and make us accessible to our community.
One of the themes that we continue to hear about is increased communication and improving communication. Anyone that works for any company or anywhere else, we are talking about the big C's and the little C's. So we're talking about collaboration and we're talking about communication. I do believe that these committees and others allow people to come in and have discussions. However, as Roderick stated, we get some of the same people. So figuring out how do we reach more people, how do we reach different people? There are additional people coming into our district that can provide information of experiences that they've gotten other places. So I think trying to find a broader way to reach the people so that we can get a variety of experiences and a variety of people coming on. I also think one of the things that's really important is to understand the charter or the charge of the committee and what it is there for, so that we have realistic expectations of what's going to come out of them. And of course, dinner with the board and all the other opportunities, we can obviously do better and do more with more time.
I can speak to my experience as a parent, and I'd heard about dinner with the board before. Not a lot else came across my radar. So that says to me, and I listen, I try to be pretty involved with my kids and what's going on in their schools. And so to me, if I'm pretty checked in and I couldn't rattle off a list of ways for me to get involved, and I think that as a district we've got to be a little bit more creative in terms of driving engagement and involvement with parents and with the community. I'll be curious to learn about these committees. I'm not very familiar with them, but I do think that we have a very broad range of perspectives across our community, and it's really important that it's not just the same voices or the same perspectives. It's got to be a mix. It's got to get people from different backgrounds giving their perspectives on whatever the policy may be, whatever the perspective may be, and not just at the district level as well. I think it's at just the district, but then also the school and the classroom level too, just all the different layers that folks can get involved in.
How should LSR7 approach artificial intelligence, which is also known as AI, and emerging technologies in the classroom?
So this is something that, as I was coming off the board in 2024, is we know that AI is here. It is rapidly growing, and we know that we have to address this. And we need to address it with a policy. Currently, the district does not have a policy surrounding AI, and that's obviously because there's a lot to learn. But also, we have to make sure that there is balance. And the balance is this is part of just the world that we live in. And so we have to make sure that we are not compromising kids learning how to think on their own. And we have to also make sure that kids are not utilizing these different tools to take it easy. But we still need to make sure that our kids are developing critical minds, and that we're still teaching them the basic fundamentals of just writing your own paragraphs, teaching them the proper way of knowing when to put a period or when to use a comma. And so we just have to find the balance, but it does start with policy.
Okay, so like Roderick said, it's here to stay. It's not going away. And this is one of those topics that every conference you go to now, whether it be from the business sector to the classrooms and education, it's across the board. Everybody's trying to figure it out. How do we address it? How do we live with it since it's here? And so I think that it starts in the classroom talking to the teachers, because the teachers are the foundation. They're boots on the ground. They're the ones that are working with the students. They're the ones who have to look at a student's paper and say, oh, yeah, no, you didn't write this. And so I think really getting the educators in the room to really figure out how are we going to do this? And then, as Roderick said, putting some policies in place to do that. Yeah, I think those are really the top ways, is just recognizing it's here, talking to our teachers, and also engaging our students, right? We want to empower them. There's a study done that looked at someone writing and looked at their brainwaves writing versus someone like looking at the computer and like reading something, and it was totally different. So making sure that we are keeping that at the forefront as well.
Ditto, ditto. So yes, we need to absolutely put policies in place for AI. We do have policies for technology, but technology moves at the speed of light at this point. And so we do have to make sure we are engaging, I think, the teachers, and with engagement with the teachers, we're looking at the curriculum specialists too, and hoping that they're getting continued education and getting professional development so that can help determine what AI we could use in the classroom that can be helpful, and again, balance it with teaching these kids how to do critical thinking on their own. I think that's extremely important. Also, finding ways for students to use it appropriately. So we're going to have teachers finding ways to do it to teach and finding ways for students to do that appropriately. I don't have that answer, but there does need to be a balance because as they continue to participate in this global economy, they will have to have understanding of using these tools and taking them into the workplace in the future.
This truly is a how to thread the needle discussion, right? Because clearly we have to teach kids how to think for themselves. Critical thinking, problem-solving skills, being able to engage with one another, right? I mean, it's the worst thing in the world, right? We're just face down in the phone, and it's a problem, it's an issue. But by the same token, we can't just put our heads in the sand and say, hey, you know, we're just gonna push it out of the educational experience entirely, because that ignores how this technology absolutely already affects the professional world and will continue to affect the professional world. And so it's a tricky question, to be certain. I think engaging with teachers, with students, outside resources, and understanding what is capable, what are the tools that exist to be able to make sure that it's not being used for the nefarious, for the cheating, for the not thinking for themselves, but also how can you incorporate in and use your critical thinking plus AI to deliver a better product in the end.
Well, as we know, and we've heard, AI is here to stay. And it worries me as a mom, I'm not gonna lie. But I do know that my kids do use it on a regular basis in school. So that much I do know. I do get concerned, are they gonna have independent thought? Are they gonna be able to use critical thinking skills when creating papers or anything like that? But I do know that it's gonna be useful when they get out of school and they have these jobs that use AI. So I support that they do have knowledge about it, but I also know that teachers have to make sure that these kids aren't using it for negative reasons, whether it's cheating or creating a paper that AI wrote for them. So, thank you.
All right, last question before the closing statements. How will you connect and collaborate with your board member peers with whom you may disagree on issues both inside and outside the boardroom? Erica.
All right, so collaboration is key, communication is key, right? Always being there to listen, to understand, and not to, I guess, fight or disagree, right? I think that there's 7 of us on the board. It's really important that we take time to understand what the other person is saying. And we may not agree. And there are a lot of things we probably don't agree on, but there's a lot of things we do, right? And I think the key is making sure that whatever decisions we're making, we're keeping the students first, right? Each and every child, that's the main focus of any decision that we make as a board. And keeping that first, I think, will always be the key to a supportive, collaborative environment.
So one of the things we talk about on Team Lead Summit, and Team Lead Summit is one of the committees at LSR7 that has all of the employer groups involved, and we talk about things like compensation and how we feel about our job and how well things are going and things that can be improved. And what we focus on is being hard on the issues and not on the people. And I think that's something we have to do when we're in these open sessions with each other and these closed sessions. I think that we also have to be able to agree to disagree. I think another quality of a leader is sometimes understanding that your idea may not be the best for that situation and considering what others have to say and what others have to do. And when we do disagree, I don't know if Mr. Haley is still in here, but we'll have some hard conversations, and in the end of the night, we give each other a fist bump and let each other know it's not personal. We all want what's best for our kids. We just have different avenues of addressing it.
So I think one of the key pieces to remember is that we all still have the same goal in mind. We care about our district, we care about our students, we care about our teachers, right? So when it's so easy to get focused on disagreement or this policy, that policy, and then that can sometimes slip into assuming negative intent. And I think remembering that, hey, listen, we're really pursuing the same goal here, right? And that is what we all want, what is best for the students and for the teachers. I think the other layer to this is win or lose graciously, right? If your idea came out on top, great. Don't be snotty about it, right? If you lose, don't have a bad attitude, right? Because again, you're going to win some, you're going to lose some. There's 7 people who have a wide variety of backgrounds and perspectives, and no one bats 1,000. So we have to continue to work together over time. 3 years is a long term, so.
Well, with 7 different opinions, passions can run high. I believe that professionalism is most what's needed on a school board. Respectful and kindness towards our board members at the dais. And just being able to have communication and conversations with other board members. We have many opportunities for that. And I just want to voice that having it at the dais is inappropriate. And we do have board norms for that. So I believe that as leaders within the school district, we should be very mindful because students are watching and students will take note. And so we are the role models for them. And how we conduct ourselves at the dais is what we should be mindful for.
I don't know why we have this question. We don't disagree on anything. What I will say is this. When you have 7 individuals that have their own priorities or experiences that are collectively having to come together and work together, what I've found to be very beneficial is to spend more time on the things you agree on than spending on things that you disagree on. And I think when you do that, you'll see progress. And so when you look at teacher pay, the board was able to give teachers $12.5 million and staff to increase their pay. When you talk about early childhood, we were able to give early childhood for free to our 4-year-olds. And that, again, will help with literacy. When you talk about teachers and honoring their years of service, no matter what district they come from, we were able to grant all years of service and that to be honored because we focused on things that really mattered and that we agreed on, than focusing on things we don't agree on.
All right, we are down at the last closing statement, so please give 1 minute of a closing statement on why residents of Lee Summit should choose you for the Lee Summit School Board. We'll go in the order of the ballot here for the ending.
So thank you everyone for being here tonight. I really appreciate you coming out to listen and hear what we all have to say. I am here tonight to ask you for your vote on April 7th. And why am I asking for that? Because I have the experience and I have proven too that I can do the work. I think that one of the most important things we can do as a society is support the public education for all of our students, because these students, and not to be cliche, are our future. They're going to be taking care of us soon when I'm living in John Knox. I'm very much looking forward to that. I also want you to know that I do have the management, the critical thinking skills, and I do have compassionate and emotional intelligence to understand all the components of what goes on in our district and how to make those decisions. I can disagree to agree. I can be hard on the issues and not on the people. And also overall, I want what's best for our kids because I too have kids in the district. Vote for me on April 7th.
Thank you all for coming tonight. This has been a really enjoyable conversation. Obviously, I know I'll be excited to hear from some of you after this on Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. at Frost Coffee. If anyone wants to come and sit and chat with me about anything, I'm going to be doing that between now and the election, and if elected, after, to continue the conversation. I bring 20 years of business consultation, leadership, and strategic thinking from outside the educational sphere. And that's why I believe that you should vote for me. I can promise you that my focus will be on the classroom, so kids and teachers, fiscal responsibility and transparency, and improving the level of engagement from parents and the community. Thank you.
My name is Regina Garrett, and I'm asking for your vote on April 7th. And what I would like to focus on in my second term is the literacy and math rates. I would love to be able to collaborate with administration and see how we can come up with ways to close the proficiency gaps, as well as still maintaining safety within our schools, as well as also being mindful of our fiscal spending. And so I'm asking for your vote on April 7th. Thank you.
I would like to take this time and thank the PTA for giving us this opportunity again to be able to share our convictions, our thoughts, and our voting records with you. I want to close by simply talking about my why. And my why is I was that student that struggled with reading in the classroom. I was that student that did not want to go to school because of the struggle that I had and the way that it made me feel when the teacher said, "Roderick, it's your time to read." We have students that come from all different backgrounds, and all of those students don't want to go to school. So we have to make sure we create an environment for every single one of our kids to belong. And so I want to be that role model. I want to be that example to say that you can come from an inner city school, you can have disabilities and struggles, you can be in a, back then they would say, learning disability class, and you can become the board president of the largest employer in the city of Lee Summit. And so my why is I want to stand up for every single one of our students that we serve in LSR7. Thank you.
Well, I want to be reelected to this position because I told you this at the beginning. I love this work. And if you would have told me 3 years ago, I had no idea what I was getting into, by the way. But I do. I love this work. And I love being able to support our teachers. I love being able to go into the classroom and actually see what our students are doing. I love being able to advocate on the dais and in Jeff City and in DC for education. And I love being a part of this community, and I want to continue to serve the community in this way. I believe that we all have a stake here. Otherwise, you wouldn't be spending your Monday night with us, right? So it's about community, it's about collaboration, it's about connection, and it's about doing what's best for our students and our teachers and staff.
All right, this concludes our Lee Summit Council, PTA Council School Board Forum. I want to give our candidates a hand for their responses tonight. Before we dismiss, to let you all talk to the candidates, you can use this room until 9 p.m. We do need to be walking out the doors at 9 if you can. Help us out with that. We want to thank the Lee Summit Police Department tonight, the Summit Technology Digital Media students who helped live stream this event, and under the direction of Dr. Sean Harrell. And then we have members of the media that are in here tonight, and we have the Missouri PTA President, Christine Kent, in the back there, representing the state of Missouri PTA as well. So thank you all for tuning in with us online, and those that join us in the room. Mingle, talk, grab some coffee, water, Coke, Sprite, whatever you like, and talk to your candidates. Thank you.